Smallpox is a highly contagious infectious disease caused by the variola virus and is thought to date back to the Egyptian Empire around the 3rd century BCE. It is known as one of the deadliest diseases to humans, with an average mortality rate of around 30%. Smallpox was spread by close contact with the sores or respiratory droplets of an infected person. In addition, things such as contaminated bedding or clothing contributed to the spread of smallpox. Symptoms of the smallpox infection begin with a fever and lethargy around 2 weeks after exposure to the variola virus. After a few days, a raised rash would form on the face and body, and sores would form inside the mouth, throat, and nose. Fluid-filled pustules would develop and expand and eventually turn into scabs. In fact, an infected person remains infectious until the last scab separates from the skin.
The process of variolation became widespread in the early 1700s. Variolation is when doctors take the scabs and pus from smallpox and put them on a non-immune person. This builds their resistance to the disease, acting as an early form of vaccination. Edward Jenner made the connection between orthopox diseases, or the poxes, when he realized that milkmaids never had smallpox after being exposed to cowpox. Jenner took the sores off a cowpox-stricken milkmaid and inoculated a young boy with the scabs. He later introduced him to smallpox, but he did not get ill. Jenner coined the term vaccination, creating the modern vaccine. As the vaccine became more prevalent, contact tracing was used to find all people with the disease and anyone they had been in contact with recently to provide the shot.
So why are we still afraid of smallpox? It seems that we do have a highly effective vaccine, and we have several antivirals that may work against the virus. But consider this. We have stopped giving smallpox vaccines to people, besides lab workers who work with the virus, since the 80s, which means all of us who were born after the 1980s have no immunity to the smallpox. With a large proportion of the population being immunologically naive to smallpox, our society is much more vulnerable to a smallpox pandemic. Due to the increasing interconnectedness of the world, a small outbreak can quickly become a global pandemic. So is this going to happen? Currently, only 2 WHO collaborating centers, one in Atlanta, Georgia, and one in Moscow, Russia, have stock of the smallpox virus. However, there is still fear that the smallpox virus might be secretly stocked and available on the quote-unquote black market, which could lead to biological warfare.
So, are we completely vulnerable to another smallpox outbreak? No. Since the 1980s, several antiviral drugs have been invented and more research on vaccines has been done. With a combination of antiviral drugs and historical protective vaccines, we are in a much better position against the smallpox pandemic than we were in the past.